everybody. Ken Hendricks from Home Instead Senior Care here. Thanks so much for joining me again today. Today we have our first returning guest, my friend Melinda Joy Pattison. She's a psychotherapist in private practice here in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And today we'll be talking with MJ about taking a pulse, figuratively speaking, on our mental health. With all that we've been going through as a culture, it's not surprising, I'm sure, that many are feeling pretty overwhelmed. We all have, many hats and many roles that we play within our day-to-day lives. For folks that we help at Home Instead, for instance, being a caregiver in and of itself can be quite overwhelming to deal with at times without an overarching pandemic crisis, along with social and political tensions thrown into the mix. There's just a lot going on. And so how are we doing with all of this? And so to talk about that, I have my friend that I always enjoy, Melinda Joy Pattison. So thanks for coming on the show, MJ.
It's a pleasure, Ken, to be back.
It was
A
so
lot of
funny
fun.
when I was getting ready to get on this call with you. I just thought about it again with that setup. When I was getting on this call with you, the theme for Rocky popped into my head. Because then it occurred to me again as I set that up. I mean, there's a lot going on, and then people are feeling really overwhelmed, and then I'm like, and here to save the day. Um, but but not. I had my intentions not to put undue pressure on you or anything, but um, I really do. I really do love having these conversations with you, and I appreciate you coming on.
And today with a little added animal interest over here.
Yeah, we might see MJ's cat getting rambunctious in the background. That'll be some extra entertainment for people. And so, with that idea of taking the pulse on our mental health, is it kind of a funny question to ask? Like, how do we know if we're doing okay?
Oh, wow.
Like, what kind of indicators do you look for, like with your clients? I mean, because I'm sure some people. I mean, I've had times in my life where somebody will ask how I'm doing, and you can tell that it's not just a casual "How are you doing?" It's more than that. They really care, and sometimes tapping into how I'm doing is tough.
Yes, yes. And so some things that we can look for are people being, I shouldn't say overly, but being extremely agitated. But then the other extreme is people who act like there's nothing going on. It's
Yeah.
like they're numb. If you ask what are you feeling right now, and you get sort of a blank stare, often people are not in touch with their feelings. That's really more of a problem. People not being in touch with their feelings, it's a big issue, and we deal with that a lot in psychotherapy practice because often people live in their heads. If you ask them how they're feeling, what we're trained and conditioned to say is, "Oh, I'm
Yeah.
fine,"
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Right? And they may be in so much turmoil inside that they have no idea how to express it, how to process it. That's all part of the work.
That
But
makes
I
a lot
see
of
the
sense.
animal activity. I wasn't counting the birds.
It sounds like you live in like a jungle or something right now. But what you were saying, I think, is really interesting. I've been thinking about that lately. You have to be able to go through things to process them. And if you can't access it, you can never really process it.
That's definitely a big piece of it. And the problem is that over time, unprocessed emotions manifest, they find a way to manifest. This is the conversation I have with my clients often, is that your emotions are going to find a way to be heard. If you push them away, deny them, act like you don't have them, all of that stuff, they're going to find a way to come out. And it could be in a physical way, it could be in a mental health issue, emotional crisis, or spiritual crisis, even. any of those ways, or maybe all of those ways, it's going to happen. And so what we want is people to get in touch with their emotions, to acknowledge their emotions, and claim them, actually. And
Yeah.
we seem to be, as a society, so afraid of that.
I was gonna ask if it's like the appropriate way to look at dealing with discomforts, like, or the most healthy way to deal with discomforts and problems and issues in our lives. It's not so much about getting rid of discomforts. I mean, because life is going to present us with a lot of uncomfortable scenarios, but is it more about changing our relationship to discomfort?
Yeah, I think you're definitely on the right track there. It's when people talk about they got to get rid of their anger. I got to get rid of this anger.
Hmm.
Well, I vote for a little different tack, which is to make friends with it. Yeah.
I've always found for me that, like, if anger arises over a situation, I feel like I said I've always found, which is not true. Um, I, I have not always found that. Like, I'm really thankful to have come to find more recently that the technique that is most healthy for me when anger arises over a situation is not to fight it, because that seems to be like throwing fire on fire. Like, oftentimes the thing that keeps me angry is the fact that I'm resisting it so much.
Yes. Yes. And people are afraid that they're going to do something that if they let the anger in, which is not even accurate because it's already in. The anger's already in.
Yeah.
But if they acknowledge it, they're afraid of the expression being maybe being harmful to themselves or others. But I think it's just the opposite. That when because it can come out in an aggressive way if we continue to push it away, push it away, push it away, not process it, not have any understanding about where it's coming from. And so this is the whole work. This is the work of accepting ourselves as we are in the moment,
Yeah.
all of the emotions that we may be having, and allowing them to, because our emotions have valuable things to say to us, and
Absolutely.
they're very different from actions. Emotion does not equal action. And if we get in touch with that emotion, then we can make a better decision about the action.
Or an emotion that we're having in a moment doesn't say something overarching about who we are.
No, it's simply an emotion, and the same with thoughts can too. We get obsessive and concerned about thoughts we may have, and it's just a thought. It's not who we are. We don't have to be identified by our particular emotion of the moment, by our thought of the moment, even by our action of the moment.
Hmm.
That's not the totality of who we are.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful. We want to be, open to just, observing things as they arise so that we can begin to understand ourselves more, and accept ourselves in a healthy way. But there are things, I'm sure, that we can do, actions that we could take, and habits that we could establish that would help us to not have excess amounts of those emotions like anger and frustration and anxiety, right? I'm thinking about monitoring, like during these times that we're living in right now, monitoring our social media intake, like actions that we could take or things that we could refrain from that might produce more of those emotions that are difficult to deal with.
Absolutely, there are things that we can do, and there's so many things really that we can do, and it's individual to the person. Certainly, not partaking of media that is agitating is a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Getting enough sleep is a great idea. Feeding oneself well, getting some sunshine, getting out in nature, and getting that vitamin D, and these are all really basic needs. The most important, I still think, is acknowledging the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's all that's needed, you know. Sometimes sometimes it's repetitive. Sometimes it interferes with the life and needs more interaction. But sometimes it just wants to be acknowledged. And I know I'm talking about emotion as if it's a person, but it is a part of our person. It is a part of our being.
Yeah, you made me think when you said that it's an individual thing, how I was kind of basically prescribing, hey, everybody, get off of social media, because I think when I see that in myself, when I see that it's a source of agitation for me, um, I can kind of end up being prescriptive for others. But honestly, like oftentimes when I'm on social media, especially if I start looking at a comment thread, I see strangers yelling at strangers, and I think, you people need to get off of this platform, for your
Yeah,
own
right,
sake, because
right,
it cannot
right.
feel. I can't imagine it feeling good. I mean, we get really passionate about our perspectives, which is understandable, but I think that when we take that passion to a place of wanting to argue with strangers about it, I can't see it being
Yeah,
healthy for individuals
right,
or for
right,
humanity as a whole.
right. And when I see that, I have to get off.
Mhm.
I I as soon as I see, for my own sake, as soon as I see that this is a dispute, I have to just stop. Just stop and go somewhere else.
My personal policy around that has become that I won't really comment on something or give my perspective unless I know the person.
Oh, that's a really valuable boundary. A boundary. It's really a boundary.
Yeah, because like I mean, if I know that I'm gonna see somebody tomorrow or next week, the way the way that I'm going to talk to them is going to be informed by that reality. And I think if we speak to someone in a manner that we wouldn't speak to them in that same way if we were face to face, we're not respecting their humanity. We're not really kind of anyway, I'm getting on, one of my soapbox, but I can get off of that.
Well,
Um,
that's okay.
one of the one of the things that you mentioned in the last episode that we did together, I thought was really, really cool, and it stuck with me about how, with all of this, with the social distancing that was taking place because of COVID and the inevitable, reopening of businesses and reassimilating and, back into interacting with people in public. You mentioned about people having to find their own way back into the stream in their own timing. Now that we're kind of at that point, we're starting to see those things happen here in New Mexico. What are you seeing with the people you're talking to, and how are you helping them find their own way?
Sure, yeah. So as far as my clients go, some are requesting to come back into the office, and some are saying, can we keep doing this way for a while? And this way means either video, as we are, or telephone. And I say to them, you can come back into the office when you're ready. We can continue this as long as that's what you need. So it's entirely up to the client, because I feel like to mandate something would be very anti-therapeutic,
Yeah,
if that
yeah, I can
makes
see that.
sense, right? And then for myself personally, I'm getting out and doing probably not that much more. I don't think I'm The only thing I'm doing that I wasn't doing a week or two ago is that I am making an intention to be with people outside, friends, to be with
Yeah.
friends outside in the open air where we can see each other and catch up, but still be safe. And it has been feeling really good. That's what I've missed.
That's great. I did that for
That's
the
what
first
I've
time this
missed.
morning myself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good for you. And so I see that in my clients. I also see that in my friends. Everybody has sort of a different comfort level. Everybody just has to decide for themselves. And we need to show a little compassion,
Yeah.
kindness toward each other as we feel our way along.
Let alone, just this scenario, but those two things will change the world.
Right? Right? And they're not what we're seeing in the news.
Yeah, we don't see that in the news. Unfortunately, it's not what gets clicks, but it is kind of, what a lot of us see in our day-to-day lives. And I think that we need to pay attention to that. I think that,
Mm.
the relationships that we have with people, I mean, goodness, if those look like the news, then just find other relationships. But but the relationships that we have with other people, we know a lot of amazing people that do amazing things, that show a lot of love and compassion to the people they come across. And that's the majority of what our lives are filled with day by day.
We have much to be grateful for.
And I think that sometimes, I mean, that's another reason to taper, our intake of certain types of media, because sometimes they can paint a picture of the world that isn't necessarily always the world we're living in. I mean, there are certainly issues to be addressed and ways that we can participate in creating positive change, but I think that it can cause us to lose faith in humanity, and really become depressed about the state of humanity, when if we just really take a look at the people we're interacting with day to day, I think we can be encouraged, because it's not as bad as sometimes the pictures that are painted, can make it look.
Right? You are so right. Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Yeah.
much for doing this again with me. I'm already looking forward to our next chat. And
All right. Delighted.
you take care, and we'll talk again real soon, okay?
Okay. That sounds great. That
Bye
sounds
bye.
great. Thank you, Ken.
For over 25 years, Home Instead has helped seniors stay home. Now, staying home isn't just staying in the place they love, it's staying safe. Home Instead. To us, it's personal.